Starting off my list at number 30, we're going to go to Michigan State linebacker Jacoby Windman.
Mertz looking, get out of there.
Oh, you got a pick.
Pass is intercepted. It's Windman, Jacoby Windman.
Windman had a stellar start to last season, earning 3 Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week honors as well as 2 National Player of the Week honors. He's an extremely versatile player that can play on the edge as a pass rusher or off the ball as a linebacker. And what that tells me is the coaching staff believes in his ability and value. They're going to line him up all over the defensive front 7 to put him in the best position to succeed. He's my highest rated and the only Michigan State player on this list. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments. Coming in at number 29 on my list, I'm going to do something a bit unique. We're going to call it 29A and B, and I'll explain why. So 29A and B is going to be the 2 Iowa tight ends, Erick All and Luke Lachey. Here's why I put them both in there. I believe that at least one of these guys will be ranked higher than 29 at the end of the season. I believe both of them have a chance to be on this list. I also believe we don't have enough information right now to say who's going to be tight end 1 at Iowa. I think they both could be tight end 1. Erick proved himself in his career at Michigan, where he was a 3-year letterman earning all Big Ten honors in 2021. Last year, he missed the majority of his season with an injury before now transferring to Iowa, a university that is known for developing tight ends. He joins Luke Lachey, who at times looked like the tight end 1 in the Iowa offense last year if it weren't for being behind a 2nd-round pick in a future elite NFL talent in Sam Laporta. Both guys are capable inline blockers, which is a requirement to play tight end at Iowa. They both have a unique skill set when it comes to running routes. I think Erick is more straight line and has that burn-away speed like we saw in that late game touchdown against Penn State, whereas Luke reminds me more of a Sam Laporta in terms of his fluidity to change direction and set up routes using feel and understanding of zones. Beyond these 2 guys, there will only be one more tight end featured. Can you guess who it is? Let me know in the comments. At number 28 on the JB30, we're going to the big fellas right in the heart of your defense. Keith Randolph, defensive lineman from Illinois. He stands at 6'5", 305 pounds, and he makes up 1/2 of the law firm, Randolph and Newton. Now, there's a minimum requirement to be an elite interior defensive lineman. You need size and power. You need to eat double teams and shock offensive linemen. But what impresses me most about Randolph is his initial burst and quickness. Again, he's 300 plus pounds, but he moves like a guy that's closer to 250. So he has that rare blend of an ability to shock an offensive lineman, but he can also stunt and gives that Illinois front 7 some versatility to move him around. I think Illinois has a chance to have one of the best defensive front 7s in the entire conference, and Randolph will be a big piece of that. Who do you think has the best front 7 in the conference? Let me know in the comments. My number 27 player is wide receiver Isaiah Williams. The first thing that stands out to me about Williams is his football IQ, meaning he has this innate feel to setting up his routes and settling in zones, making him a friendly target to the quarterback. Well, where does that come from? Well, he played quarterback back in his day before transferring to wide receiver, and he's gotten a little bit better every year. That football IQ also gives offensive coordinator Barry Lunney Jr. some opportunity to move him around and put him in different spots. They've used him in jet sweeps. They've used him in screen games. They use him in their RPO to complement their run game, as well as those intermediate and deep routes. He can do it all. Isaiah Williams is one of those guys that's dangerous anytime he's on the field, and I expect him to be a big piece of the Illinois offense this fall. At number 26 on my list, we're going to Ann Arbor with my first Michigan player off the board, defensive lineman Chris Jenkins. One of the best compliments you can give an interior defensive lineman is disruptive. He's a force in the run game, but has enough quickness and speed to be an elite pass rusher as well. Not to mention, elite football is in his blood, as he is the son of former NFL player Chris Jenkins Sr. Now, Chris Jenkins could have left for the NFL draft last year and could have went as low as a mid-round selection and maybe could have snuck into the 2nd round. He's got that level of potential. But he decided to come back to Ann Arbor to now lead this defensive line unit in pursuit of another Big Ten championship and their first college football playoff win. Jenkins is the first of a few Michigan players on this list. What do you guys think? Which team has the most players that made my top 30? Let me know in the comments. Coming in at number 25 on my JB top 30 is a safety that really made his mark and established himself as one of the best in the conference last year. That's Minnesota safety, Tyler Nubin. Pro Football Focus had Tyler Nubin as their #1 rated safety in pass coverage last year, allowing the lowest completion percentage when targeted across all safeties in all of college football, not just the Big Ten Conference. He's another guy that could have left for the NFL last year and been a day 2, early day 3 pick, but he decided to come back to lead this Minnesota Gopher defense, and he now has his eyes on being a potential first or second round pick. I love safety and tight end matchups this year. Nubin will get to play against some of the best in the West. What matchups are you guys looking forward to most this fall? Let me know in the comments. At number 24 on my list, I think this next guy is one of the most underrated players, certainly one of the most underrated linebackers in the Big Ten Conference. It's Muma Njongmeta, linebacker out of Wisconsin. Njongmeta always had the potential but dealt with injuries in the early part of his career in Wisconsin. But last year, he had his breakout season. This guy can do anything you ask of him. Wisconsin hired the new head coach, Luke Fickell, who is a defensive mind and has a history of developing elite linebackers. Njongmeta will be in the heart of this Wisconsin defense and will be the leader for Luke Fickell's new scheme. I expect him to continue on his trajectory of having a great season last year and raising the bar further this year. Here's another question for you. Does Muma Njongmeta have the best name in the conference? Let me know in the comments. At number 23 on my list, we're sticking with the linebacker position. This time we're headed to Ann Arbor for a guy that I love watching on tape, Junior Colson. Now, Colson burst onto the scene as a freshman, playing some of his best football in the second half of the season, which earned him freshman All-American honors. The challenge then was to elevate his game further in 2022, and he did exactly that. Junior Colson has a strong build, and he's a physical downhill linebacker that can snap the necks back of opposing offensive linemen when they come up on him off their double teams. He's also proven to be effective as a zone dropper in the middle of the field, scanning the quarterback's eyes, and has proven himself as a leader of this talented Michigan defense. Colson's a guy on this list that I can see easily climbing into the top 20, top 15 by the end of the season if he continues on the trajectory that he's had throughout his career. Colson's one of my favorite players to watch on tape, but let me know who you guys' favorite players are to watch in the Big Ten Conference. At 22, we're sticking with the love for linebackers. This time, we're going with Penn State linebacker Abdul Carter. Now, I got the chance to cover a couple Penn State games last year. You know, when you're watching the tape, you just turn it on at first and you see what guys stand out. And there was Abdul Carter. I couldn't believe it when I looked up and said, this guy's just a freshman? Immediately, his speed and explosiveness jumps off the film. He can close the gap on quarterbacks and running backs trying to break out to the edge, and when he hits you with a certain type of violence that he wants you to know he was there. Carter filled up his trophy case as just a freshman, earning multiple Big Ten honors, earning freshman All-American honors, and doing some things that had only been done once before by a Penn State linebacker when he joined Deion Barnes as the only Penn State freshman to record 10+ tackles for loss and 6+ sacks in the season. Penn State has a real chance this year to make a run at a Big Ten championship, get into that college football playoff conversation, and Abdul Carter will be the heart of the Penn State defense and a big reason why I'm so high on them. Carter's my first Nittany Lion to come off this list, but Penn State fans, let me know who else from that team deserves to be on this list. At 21 on my list, we're going back up to Minnesota with tight end Brevyn Spann-Ford. Spann-Ford is my highest rated tight end on this list, meaning I think he's the #1 tight end in the Big Ten Conference. A few years ago, I called the Minnesota Spring Game, and there I saw Brevyn Spann-Ford. And immediately I'm like, man, this guy looks like he could be on the basketball team. Tall, rangy guy, long arms, long legs, and he moves fluently as well for a bigger guy. That wingspan allows him to go up and attack the football, making him a hard cover for any linebacker or safety. Now that's great. A lot of tight ends can catch the ball, but what impresses me most, and I think one of the most underrated parts of Spann-Ford's game, is he's not just a willing blocker. He's a very good blocker, a reliable blocker. Again, those long arms act as levers. He's got the feet of a basketball player to get in great position, and he's got the power in his lower half to drive defensive ends off the ball, as well as get dirty on some of these double teams. Spann-Ford is the all-around tight end, and I expect him to continue that path forward, hoping to see him get 50+ receptions this year and elevate his receiving yards even further. So Spann-Ford is the last tight end I have on this list. There's a couple more I wanted to add. What tight ends are going to crack this list at the end of the season? Let me know in the comments. At number 20 on my list, we're going to go with the first quarterback taken. That's Maryland quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa. Taulia has virtually rewritten the entire Maryland record book. Passing yards, passing touchdowns, completions, completion percentage, 300-yard passing games, passing efficiency, and total offense. But it doesn't stop there. He is actually in the conference record book as well. As it stands right now, he is the career completion percentage leader of all Big Ten quarterbacks. But I think completion percentage tells us a few things that can highlight the strengths of Taulia's game. To have a good completion percentage, what do you need to do? You need to be able to read defenses. You need to be able to identify the open receiver. Then you need to have the accuracy, trust, and arm strength to put the ball on the open receiver within the timing of the scheme. All that is how you can evaluate a good quarterback. And the fact that Taulia leads the Maryland record book and the Big Ten Conference throughout history in completion percentage tells you that this guy has all the intangibles to be a great quarterback once again this year. You combine that with Mike Locksley and Josh Gattis, two coaches that know how to scheme up a creative, fun offense, as well as develop great wide receivers around him. I expect Taulia to continue to elevate his game and have an even better season this year in his final season at Maryland. Taulia is my first quarterback off the board. How many more quarterbacks do you think I have on this list? And what are some of the names you think I should consider? Let me know in the comments. Jake Butt here, previewing my JB Top 30 Best Returning Big Ten Players ahead of the 2023 season. We're now inside the top 20. Here's my number 19. We're headed to Columbus to their backfield, running back TreVeyon Henderson. Henderson had a great 2021 campaign, so much so that before last year, he was a preseason All-American on Heisman watch lists, had the chance and people were betting on him to break out. But he dealt with a number of injuries, which limited his ability to produce for the entire season. But we still have a body of work and film to say that Henderson is one of the best backs in the conference, and if he gets healthy and produces as he's capable, should be one of the first running backs taken off the board in next year's NFL draft. Remember, in Columbus, Ohio State's introducing a few new pieces across their offensive line and a new starting quarterback. I expect them to lean on Henderson early and often in this season, but in the 2023 season, I expect Henderson to get back on track and prove to us again why he's one of the best running backs in the conference. Henderson is the first of 5 total running backs in my top 30. Who do you think the other 4 names are and in what order? Let me know in the comments. What's up, guys? Jake Butt here in the thick of the JB Top 30, and now we're at number 18, going back to Penn State, and one of the best pass rushers in the country in Chop Robinson. PFF had him rated as the number 1 pass rusher in all of college football last year. Immediately when you turn on the tape, the speed off the edge was apparent. But he's had an entire offseason, and rumor has it he's put on another 15 pounds. Weighed 240 last year, weighing close to 255 this year. Penn State has a star-studded defense in year 2 of the Manny Diaz campaign. Chop Robinson will be one of the leaders of the front 7. Last year, Robinson finished with 5.5 sacks on the season. I think he has the capability to get to double digits. Do you guys think Robinson finishes with more or less than 10 sacks on the season? Let me know in the comments. At number 17 on my JB Top 30, we're back in Ann Arbor for safety Rod Moore. Rod Moore is a guy that gets the respect in the football circles, but I don't think he gets enough national respect for what he's done in his career. It's not always sexy, but it's really darn efficient. For the football junkies that love tape, you will rarely turn on Michigan's defense and see Rod Moore out of place. We get these iPads as players where you can watch film, and the coaches have time trackers. They can see who's watching film and who isn't. Rod Moore, as a true freshman, was number 1 on the team in watching total hours of film out of all the other guys. And it was a significant margin between number 1 and number 2. Why does that matter? Well, I think all that film study paid off last year, particularly in his ability to understand the full defensive schemes and to start to toy with quarterbacks. Rod Moore is a guy that has gotten steadily better and better throughout his career. What I think is the deepest safety room in the entire Big Ten Conference in Ann Arbor. Who has the best secondary in the Big Ten? Let me know in the comments. What's up, guys? Jake Butt here. We're at number 16 on the JB Top 30, and we're going to the freshman phenom, running back out of Penn State, Nick Singleton. If you went into last season not knowing about Singleton, you didn't have to wait long to find out about him. So let's set the scene. Big Ten versus SEC, big brand Penn State, big brand Auburn. Penn State on the road, down in Auburn, and they're gonna lean on this young freshman, Nick Singleton. He averaged over 12 yards a carry. He had 10 carries, 124 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game alone. But it didn't stop there. He built on that stat line enough to be named the Big Ten Freshman of the Year after completing his season with over 1,000 yards and 12 total touchdowns. When you watch Singleton and when you watch this Penn State offense, one thing is certain. If there is a lane and Singleton has an angle, good luck catching him. He has that home run speed. And I look at this Penn State offensive line led by Olu Fashanu as the best offensive line they've had in a large number of years. That's only going to benefit Singleton as he looks to build on last year's stats. So let's revisit it. My first running back was TreVeyon Henderson. My next was Nick Singleton. I have 3 more backs on the list. Can you guess the order now? Let me know in the comments. At number 15 on my JB Top 30, I got love for the big fellas. Let's give some love to the offensive linemen and let's head to Columbus to do that with offensive guard Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. He was one of the best interior offensive linemen in the nation last year and returned to Columbus this year to lead an offensive line that's replacing a few parts that they lost to the NFL draft. Jackson has this rare arm length, which allows him to engage with defensive linemen, lock them out, and then he can use his lower body power to drive you off the line of scrimmage. That length also means if he wanted to, he could play any of the 5 positions across the offensive line. In fact, it was discussed maybe he would play some tackle this year. Rumor has it he's going to stay on the interior and play offensive guard. Ohio State traditionally has one of the most explosive offenses in college football. I expect that to be the same this year, but they are introducing a new quarterback. They are replacing 3 starters across the offensive line. Jackson will be the anchor of that group as they look to continue the offensive success that they've had under Ryan Day. At number 14 in the JB Top 30, Cooper DeJean, defensive back out of Iowa. Of course, 2 words that go hand in hand is great defense in Iowa Hawkeyes. And Cooper DeJean will carry that legacy once again this year. Last year, he had 5 interceptions, including 3 returned for touchdowns. There's a running joke in football circles that you play cornerback when you don't have the hands to play wide receiver. That's not the case with DeJean. He made some unbelievable interceptions, including a couple that would be hard catches over the shoulder for even the best receivers. But again, it doesn't stop there. He's a great punt returner. He's great on special teams and in punt coverage. He has the versatility and flexibility to play corner or safety in college or at the next level. And he's more than just a willing tackler at the cornerback position. He's one of the best tacklers at that position in all of college football. Can DeJean go over or will he go under that 5 interception mark this year? Let me know in the comments. Jake Butt here, back with the JB Top 30, and at number 13 on my list, we're gonna stick with the cornerback position. We're going up to Ann Arbor. Will Johnson, cornerback for the Michigan Wolverines. A former 5-star recruit, it's been since Rashawn Gary or Jabril Peppers that a guy has been this highly touted on the defensive side of the ball as a recruit for the Michigan Wolverines. And he did not disappoint. A quiet start to last season, I felt he really came into his own in the Michigan State game. From there, he built his confidence, and by the end of the season, in 3 games against 3 of the best wide receivers in all of college football, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State, Charlie Jones out of Purdue, and Quentin Johnston out of TCU. Will Johnson, the true freshman, found himself matched up, and he did not disappoint. In the Big Ten Championship, he had 2 interceptions, helping propel Michigan to back-to-back Big Ten Championship trophies. Coming in at number 12 on the JB Top 30, we're going back to Columbus, this time to the linebacker room, linebacker Tommy Eichenberg. I think what excited me most about Eichenberg was the jump he made from the 2021 season to the 2022 season. To have the success he did last year tells me a few things. One, that this guy's committed and dedicated to his craft. He's willing to put the work in to improve his game. And then he showed the capability to go out and produce at the level he did. He could have left last year for the NFL. He's back to lead this year 2 Jim Knowles-led Ohio State defense. And just like he did from 21 to 22, I expect him to make another further jump going into the 2023 season. It's the year 2 of the Jim Knowles defense down in Columbus. I'd like to know from you guys, what are the expectations for the Buckeyes this fall? Jake Butt here with the JB Top 30. We're at number 11. We're sticking in Columbus with defensive end JT Tuimoloau. It's probably the single best individual defensive performance I'd ever seen in all of my fandom of college sports. JTT against Penn State had a historic game. 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. He showed his dominance. But here's the trick. He showed his dominance, but he hasn't been consistently dominant. Clearly, he's capable of it, right? You don't just fall into a game like that against an elite Penn State team last year. But my challenge for JTT this year is to do that on a consistent basis, particularly against teams that you should dominate against. And then when you play Michigan, when you play Penn State, you play Notre Dame, who has some of the best tackles in college football, can you dominate the majority of the stats this game? I believe he will. And that's why I have him so high on my list. JT Tuimoloau has the potential to be a first-round pick. At the lowest, he could even be a top 10 pick, but he needs to produce the way he did against Penn State last year throughout the entirety of the season. And if he can do that, Ohio State is going to be a team that's really, really hard to beat. That's my number 11 pick. We're cracking the top 10. What are some names you guys are most excited to see? Let me know in the comments. All right, we're now entering the top 10 in the JB Top 30. And what better way to break the top 10 returning players in the Big Ten Conference than with a quarterback, my highest rated quarterback in Ann Arbor, J.J. McCarthy. Now, JJ burst onto the scene. Of course, he was a five-star recruit, but I think Michigan fans got a chance to see his potential with a highlight reel touchdown against Western Michigan, rolling out to the right side of the field, throwing it all the way across to the left side of the field for about a 70-yard touchdown. That is a no-no for most quarterbacks, but JJ has that special talent where he can make any throw on the field. Not to mention, last year in 2022, he was the first Michigan quarterback to travel down to Columbus and come out with a win since Drew Henson did it in the year 2000. Now entering his junior season, his third year in Ann Arbor, JJ is going to be on all the watch lists, including the Heisman watch list. And if Michigan wants to get back to the college football playoff and reach their ultimate goal of winning a national championship, JJ is going to have to realize his full potential this year and be that complementary piece, if not more, to an excellent Michigan run game. Expectations are sky high for JJ McCarthy. What do you guys think his stat lines would be this season? Let me know in the comments. Coming in at number 9 in my JB Top 30, you know I love my big fellas in the middle. We're going to go with offensive guard in Ann Arbor, Zach Zinter. Zinter was a former 3-star recruit if you looked at the 247 composite ratings, who has now effectively outplayed everybody that was rated higher than him in his class. He was the centerpiece of a Michigan offensive line that won back-to-back Joe Moore awards, meaning they were the best offensive line in all of college football. Last season, Zinter played 835 snaps. In those snaps, he only gave up 6 total quarterback hurries and only 1 sack in the entire season. Not only that, he's known for his nastiness in the run game, constantly getting aggressive in double teams, pushing defensive linemen back, and putting linebackers on their backs. Zinter had a chance, would have been one of the highest rated linemen taken last year, maybe a day 2 pick, decided to come back to Ann Arbor and chase 3 straight Joe Moore awards with that Michigan offensive line, as well as try to compete for a national title. Only a small handful of people with alliteration, first name Z, last name Z. Can you name me at least one more player that has the double Z's in their name? Let me know in the comments. We're at number 8 in the JB Top 30, and wouldn't it be fitting to have another elite Wisconsin running back cracking the top 10? Well, that's what we have. We're up in Wisconsin for running back Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is a 240-pound freight train that can bloody your lip with physicality with enough finesse to take you outside for a dance. Allen is coming off back-to-back 1,200-yard rushing seasons when you consider he faced an 8-man box almost as much as anybody in the entire country. So on 61% of his rushes last year, he was running into a loaded 8-man box. That's 4th most behind the 3 military schools, who, as we know, run triple option and teams will load the box. So for him to put up that production, effectively running to a wall, just makes his production that much more impressive. And I had a chance to call their spring game this year. He looked renewed, rejuvenated, even more explosive and light on his feet. I expect him to have an even bigger year with a new offensive system under Phil Longo. They're going to spread out the defense. He's going to be running into lighter boxes, and good luck tackling him when you just reach out for one arm. We could do a whole 10-minute show on the greatness that Wisconsin has produced in their running back room over the years, but I'm curious, when it's all said and done, where do you think Braylon Allen will rank among all those Wisconsin greats? At number 7 in the JB Top 30, we're going with my highest rated corner, one of the best man-to-man cover corners in all of college football, Penn State cornerback Kalen King. Kalen King proved himself as one of the best one-on-one single coverage man corners in all of college football last year, and that is extremely important when you consider the defensive structure that Manny Diaz wants Penn State to identify as. Here's what we know. Manny Diaz is going to be aggressive. He's going to send the house, at times even zero blitz. And what that means is he's going to demand a lot out of his cornerbacks. He's going to put them on an island and say, hey, you have to go toe-to-toe with a great receiver, not hold, not pass interference, and still be in position to make the play when the ball's thrown your way. Well, here's the stats to back it up. In 2022, per PFF, Kalen King had the highest grade in single coverage of any corner in all of college football, grading out at a 93.1. Not only that, when he was targeted in single coverage, he gave up the lowest passer rating, allowing an 18.3 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. King stands a little under 6 foot tall, but has fluid hips, quick feet, and instincts that is required to be a great cornerback. Jake Butt here. We're winding down the JB Top 30, previewing my top 30 players entering the 2023 season. And at number 6, we have another great Ohio State wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka. We saw early in his career him explode onto the scene in special teams. That allowed him to develop into a great receiver. He did it with jet sweeps, even got some carries. Lined up in the backfield. Last year, Egbuka lined up in the slot 444 snaps. 232 of those snaps were out wide. Not only that, he lined up in the backfield for 8 reps. And of course, we know he's a great receiver, but he rushed for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year as well. Egbuka is a #1 receiver pretty much anywhere else in the country. He just happens to be behind the best prospect in all of college football, Marvin Harrison Jr. In my opinion, Ohio State has the best wide receiver room in all of college football. It's another year where Ohio State is introducing a new quarterback. Whoever it is under center will have a plethora of riches to give the ball to, and one of those big names is Emeka Egbuka. We're now entering the top 5 in the JB Top 30. So at number 5, we're going with running back out of Michigan, Donovan Edwards. Now again, when I made this list, I asked myself, how good are you at doing your job? Not just the stats, right? Because we have to remember, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, they're great as individuals, but their stats are capped because they split carries. But if you just turn on the tape, when Donovan Edwards is on the field, how great is he at doing his job? Well, let's take you back to Columbus, 2022. Seasons on the line for both teams. 2 Titans colliding. Blake Corum down. Donovan Edwards, that means you're going to have to carry the load. And we found out the fact he was playing injured. Well, there's that infamous run, about 7.5 minutes left in the 4th quarter, 31-23 Michigan. There's a fork in the road. Ohio State needs a stop. Michigan trying to break the game open. Everyone in the stadium knows they're going to give the ball to Donovan Edwards. And what does he do? He takes it 75 yards to the house to seal the deal for the Michigan Wolverines. The thing about Donovan Edwards is he could line up and be one of the best slot receivers in the conference too. Some running backs are not natural pass catchers. They use their body, they shy away from the football. Edwards catches it like a wide receiver would, and that allows him to be more dynamic and allows the offensive system in Ann Arbor to be flexible with how they use him. We also know the identity of Jim Harbaugh. He wants to run the football. He's developed a great offensive line with offensive line coach Sharon Moore. And then the icing on the cake is you have 2 great running backs. We'll get to the other one later. But Donovan Edwards has a chance to play for a decade plus at the next level. At number 4 in my JB Top 30, probably one of my favorite players that I got to cover last year. Johnny Newton, defensive lineman, Illinois. You look at Newton getting his stance. He looks like a wild bear, a double-wide refrigerator. Strong back, big bear-like hands. He shocks offensive linemen. Johnny Newton is the monster that used to hide under your bed when you were a little kid. He's the one that keeps opposing offensive linemen up at night. He rarely, if ever, gets moved by solo blocks. Usually he's the one knocking them back. But even more so when he's double teamed, he still rarely gets moved, allowing his linebackers and supporting players to fill holes and make plays in the backfield. But this is what makes him extra special. Of course you have to be a beast in the run game, but his quickness shows up in his pass rushing moves as well. Johnny Newton is a polished, complete interior defensive lineman. He will play for 15 years at the next level. Now, Illinois had the top rated scoring defense in all of FBS last year. They lose their defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, but they keep some serious talent. Can Newton lead this defense back to a top 5, top 10 status? Let me know in the comments. We're now inside the top 3 in my JB Top 30. We're going out to Penn State. Tackle Olu Fashanu. Offensive line may not be sexy for the average fan, but I encourage you, go turn on Olu Fashanu's tape. Olu played 542 snaps last year. How many sacks do you think he gave up? I'll save you the research. 0. We all played Madden back in the day. If I had to create a player to be my left tackle, it would be Olu Fashanu. Perfect size, long arms, quickness that's very rare for someone of his size. Powerful hands that can shock and slow down edge rushers. You want that punch to lift their shoulder pads up and stop their momentum. Physical in the run game, but where he really shows up is the outside zones, watching him reach, step, and get out on the edge and seal defenders, similar to Trent Williams out for the 49ers. It was a huge get for James Franklin and Drew Aller, the new quarterback, to see Olu Fashanu return to Penn State this year. Thought he could have been a first rounder last year. Now he has a chance to be a potential top 10, maybe even a top 5 pick if he can build on the success. At number 2 in my JB top 30, going up to Ann Arbor, running back Blake Corum. You turn on the tape and you see number 2 condensed into a big ball of muscle, a low center of gravity with great vision and great patience. Running back coaches say slow to, fast through. Now what does that mean? It means once you get the handoff, you want to be patient in the backfield, let your blocks develop, and then once the hole opens, fast through, hit it. You go turn on Blake's tape and that's exactly what you see. He allows the blocks to develop, patient, dancing, cutting, and then once he's through the hole, if he gets daylight, it's sayonara. What I look for in running backs, if the play is blocked by the offensive line to get 6-7 yards, a good running back will get 6-7-8 yards. A great back might get tackled but fall forward, get 9-10 yards. But the elite backs, like Blake Corum, they'll take an average run play and see something that most don't see, turning it into an explosive play and even better, a touchdown. Something very subtle as well that does not get enough credit for the average viewer. Blake Corum is an elite, maybe the best pass blocking running back in all of college football. That is one of the hardest duties for running backs or any position, to identify the big picture, see the blitzing secondary and linebacker elements, not only just identify but come up and hit you in your mouth, stop your momentum and give your quarterback a clean pocket. Many people thought Blake would leave for the NFL last year. He's back in Ann Arbor, says he's healthy, says he's ready to make another run at a three-peat for a Big Ten championship and get back to the college football playoffs. And here we are, number 1 in the JB Top 30. This should come at no surprise for anyone because he's the best prospect in all of college football, the best player at any position. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. You can start with his size. At a measured 6'4" with long arms, he has an infinite catch radius. Whoever the quarterback is, throw it in the vicinity. He has the long arms and the sticky hands to come down with it. He has the speed to beat you over the top, but he also has the patience, savvy, and feel to know how to set up his routes. There's an art to route running. It's not always just a track meet. The good ones can sell you vertical, drop their weight, and change direction, creating separation against the best corners. We talk about 50-50 balls. Good receivers make that 55-45. Great receivers, maybe 60-40. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's closer to 70-30, if not 75-25. But that's if it's a 50-50 ball, because usually he's creating enough separation to make 100% catchable pass. We like to make comparisons, and I've heard A.J. Green as a comparison for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's fair. Both tall, longer, rangy receivers. A.J. Green, a great receiver in the NFL as well. I do believe one day Marvin Harrison Jr. will transcend past comparisons. Now, he's got a long road ahead to prove himself as one of the best to ever play the game, but there's nothing on tape that indicates he can't be one of the best to ever play the wide receiver position. I'd like to open myself to some criticism, some feedback. You guys let me know, where was I right, where was I wrong? Who were some names that I should have had on this list? And who do you think is on this list that will rise to new heights? Please let me know in the comments.